Good evening, everybody. The man who needs no introduction. Thank you. It's great to see so many people here, and we're here really to discuss and celebrate the release of Vince's first solo album called Sounds of Silence. And it's kind of appropriate that we're doing this at the Rough Trade shop, because the first time we didn't really meet, the first time we saw each other was at the original Rough Trade shop at 202 Kensington Park Road. It was a bit of a non-meeting really, but it was back in 1980. Maybe Vince, can you remember?
Yes, all it was Dave Glan and I, we made a demo, well, the band had made a demo, and Dave and I took it to various record companies, and that was back in the day when you could actually literally go into the office and say, can you play my cassette? And we went to Rough Trade, because Rough Trade were really cool. And played,
still are, right?
And still are, of course, yeah. And played our cassette, and they said, you know, it's not really our cup of tea. So they asked, Daniel happened to be in the office.
Yeah, and I was in a bad mood because we were just trying to get the first Fad Gadget album out, Fireside Favourites, and there was a problem with the artwork that had gone wrong, and I was just in a really bad mood. And a great guy, Scott Peering, late Scott Peering, who was talking to the guys, said, oh, you know, Daniel might like this. Hey, why don't you come over and have a listen? And I said, no, I'm just too busy. I've got to go, sorry, bye. And then, a few weeks later, I saw them play live at the Bridge House.
Yeah, we were supporting Fad Gadget.
And that was, yeah, we might talk about the past, but let's talk about the new album first.
Yes.
Your first ever solo album, why?
Well, it wasn't really, it was never intended as an album. You know, I was, during COVID, you know, I was just looking for things to do, and I started off by doing a couple of internet online history courses, and that went on for a while, and then I started working on some tracks, or some demo tracks for the next, hopefully the next Erasure record. That finished, and then I thought, you know, I had this Eurorack system, and it was quite a small system, and I'd never really used it or learned how to use it, so I decided that I would experiment with it. And I was watching Blade Runner 2, and you know, I'm a science fiction fan, but I'm a huge fan of Blade Runner 1. And you know, you go and watch this film and you think there's no way that they can make this better. And I watched it 4 times, and on the 4th time I realised actually it was probably better. But the music really inspired me, the soundtrack to the film, and I thought to myself, I'm going to go and make Blade Runner 3. So I went downstairs into my studio and started making these drones, and that was the birth of the project really. But it was never intended as a record. It was really just for me to learn how to use the synthesizer. It was like an exercise almost. So I spent many hours watching YouTube tutorials on Eurorack modules. You know, and if you're into that stuff, you know, it's really interesting. So that was the start of the whole thing.
It's interesting that because, you know, some of you all might know, Vince has an incredible collection of vintage synthesizers, amazing collection, and which all sound great, but you decided to use the Eurorack instead.
Yeah. It was very specific, only because I didn't know how. I hate the idea of having gear that's not used. You know, there was one time in my career where I was just collecting stuff for the sake of it, really, because it was valuable or because it was rare, and it was like you were sort of showing off, really. But I got rid of all of that stuff, and so I made a determined effort to try and learn this new format. and you know, discovering the potential of it. And I mean, I still don't really understand it, but you know, I've got a lot of. I love making music. For me, is, you know, the joy of making music is mostly in the process. It's not so much the record at the end or the other stuff that goes with it. The actual process of fiddling about with knobs and dials and sliders. And, you know, I love that shit.
And the title of the album, what inspired that? Where did that come from?
Well, it was actually I came up with the idea for a previous Erasure record, and Andy wasn't so keen. You know, fair enough. But obviously, you know, you probably know I'm a huge fan of Simon and Garfunkel, and one of the first records that inspired me to make music and maybe make a living out of making music was listening to their music, and of course, you know, the Sounds of Silence. I could play. I mean, I knew all the chords and everything. You know, I bought the songbook, and I just thought that it was. I think that the title says it all, really. I mean, it's not a.
It's a great title for that record.
Yes, it's, you know, it's not a song-based album.
When did you? I mean, you said you started out by, you know, trying out a few experiments and practicing and learning. There must have come a point where you thought, actually, this could be an album.
No, never.
Oh, okay.
No, I mean, when I sent you the stuff, Daniel got in touch. We were talking or emailing, and he said, "What am I doing?" And I said, "I'm doing a few things, messing around." And he said, "Send me some stuff, you know, just out of curiosity." And so I did. And then he got back in touch and said, you know, maybe, you know, we could release this as a record. But I was in total shock because it wasn't really what I intended. I mean, I would have happily just been carrying on making drones.
But you sent it to me as an album, didn't you? Or did you? Or you
No, I just sent what I thought were the best tracks.
Okay. This is how it works, you know, in the music business, right? It's really formalised.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's an interesting, the song Blackleg,
Yeah.
that used, for those who've heard the album or saw the show last Friday, that has a sample
Yes.
of an old traditional Union song.
Yeah.
How did you find that sample?
Well, I you know, I might have this wrong, but many years ago, I was working with Martin Ware from Heaven 17, and we were doing music for art installations, and he just happened to give me this tape of this a cappella folk song and said, maybe you can make something of it. And I spent years trying to make it into a song, you know, trying to time it, trying to get the right pitch, turn it into a traditional song, but it just wasn't working. And then I did one of my drone tracks, and I just thought, I wonder if this is gonna, maybe I can sit that on top. And I recorded it on top of the track that I had, and it was one of those really weird moments. I didn't have to tune it or time it. It just sat on this track like magically and beautifully, and just worked. And and it's, you know, and it's a very emotional song. You know, the lyrics are really hard hitting, and it just seemed to work with that track.
And I don't know who was there on Friday, but the visual for that was absolutely stunning as well. And quite interested actually about the visuals for the live show.
Yes.
There's some absolutely brilliant bits. Who was there on Friday? Yeah. Good, well done. The visuals were stunning. Do you want to talk a little bit about those and how they came together?
Yeah, so I was talking to Richard, the guy that runs the EIS, you all know Richard, right? And I just mentioned, I said, it might be interesting to do some kind of event to kind of launch the record. And he was really enthusiastic about the idea. And then I thought, I don't want it to be a traditional concert. I don't want, mainly because I'm not that interesting, and you know, there's no Andy Bell to you know, at the front. So, and I've always wanted to do something like a visual show. I mean, I mean, it was done early in the early days, like with, obviously with the Human League and their very first 2 albums, and many people after that. But I always wanted to try and do something like that, so I started compiling these ideas for visuals. Some of them I commissioned. I got some people, found some people from all over the world actually that put together various visual ideas for some of the songs. A lot of the ideas I got from archival. Oh yeah, from the archives. And edited those together. And then some ideas were a lot more graphic kind of ideas. But the idea always was that the show wouldn't be a band or an act with visuals, it would be visuals with music. And we wanted it to be all-encompassing, which is why the screens were on the outside as well as being the main screen at the front.
Yeah, it works super. It's really, really great, really moving, really incredibly well chosen images for the music.
And it's really interesting because when you put a visual that has nothing to do with the track, suddenly the track becomes something completely different.
Yeah, and I mean, Blackleg is the only track with lyrics.
Yes.
Well, and the opera there.
Yeah.
I don't know, was that a video that you created from archival, or did somebody else do that?
That was archival, yeah.
That was incredible.
That was slightly stolen, but I won't tell you where I got it from.
Just in case there are any lawyers here tonight. Blackleg is obviously an original recording from the past. And normally when we use that, we have to clear the sample, the copyright. And we made every effort to try and track down the original version of that, or the performer of the original version. And we spent a lot of time and we could not find that person who sang the song, or the person who recorded the song, in order for us to get the rights to use it. So we decided it was such a beautiful thing that we just decided to use it anyway, and hope that if somebody did recognise it, they would let us know and we'd take care of them.
Yeah.
In a nice way. It was not a very good choice of So it's a solo album. What's going on with Erasure?
So yeah, we're as I said earlier, I've started doing some demos and putting some ideas together to play to Andy. He hasn't actually heard any of those yet. So we're hoping to start. We'll get together because we never write remotely. It just doesn't work for us. We have to be in the same room at the same time and to make a complete song. It's just because it's just that our chemistry is very special and our relationship is very special. And when we can go into a room with no ideas and come out with one good idea, it's like a magical thing, and I love that. I still get super excited when that happens. So yes, I've put a few ideas together, and hopefully at the beginning of next year we'll start actually formulating them into songs, and then that will be an album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just so, Andy's also working on a solo album at the moment, so
Yes.
expect that at some point soon. History-wise, do you want to talk about the history a little bit?
Absolutely. Sure.
We talk about 1980. I'm not going to when we had that non-meeting at the Rough Trade shop, and then I saw Depeche play. I saw Depeche play at the Bridge House in Canning Town supporting Fat Gadget. Why not? That's nice. I just immediately wanted to work with them. And I had a kind of awkward conversation. There was kind of a backstage, small room really. It was a pub. It was a music pub, so they were used to having bands there. There was a backstage. I remember going backstage, and I didn't recognise them from that Rough Trade non-meeting. but they remembered me not being very friendly, and were not that well pleased to see me.
Oh no, that's not true, because we always knew that Beauty Records was a cool label,
Yeah.
and and even the privilege of being able to play with Fad Gadget was incredible for us. I mean, that was the music that we were listening to. It totally was. Obviously the Normal, the Silicon Teens, Fad Gadget, and all of that stuff was being played at our parties in Basildon. So. But I think the first thing that we did was with Steve-O, right?
Well, that's a historically controversial. The way I remember it, yes, and various other. So I came to see you play a second time there, and Steve-O was there,
Right.
and Matt from the Ver was there, and I'm not sure if Mark Armand was there. We were all kind of talking to each other. Nobody had released any records yet, but so I was a little kind of futurist. I don't think you called yourselves new romantics, more like futurists in those days.
It was more cool to be a futurist.
Yeah, sure. And Steve-O was very young at that time. He was a DJ and had a chart called the Futurist Chart and everything. And he wanted to sign Depeche as well. I mean, I never actually signed Depeche, as some of you might know. We never did contracts in those days, but he wanted to work with Depeche, and I wanted to work with Depeche. And he was a character. He is a character still. He's very much a character. And then he said, "All right, well, I'll do soft sell then, and you can have Depeche Mode." Because that's just how it works. And he said, "But I want you to get a track for my compilation, the Some Bizarre compilation, which is a fantastic, amazing document at the time, and a really great record." So we went into a studio called Stage One.
That's right. Yeah.
Stage One in East End somewhere, and did Photographic.
That's right. Yeah. I remember when Steve-O, because myself and the band were talking about whether we should, be with Steve-O or yourself, and Steve-O said, "Well, if you come with me, I'll get you a support slot with Ultravox." and that really was a temptation, at the time.
Well,
and in the end, I think we did do a sort of a little mini tour.
we supported Ultravox at the People's Palace.
That's right, yeah.
Which was Rusty Egan. It was all part of the New Romantic Blitz Club thing.
Yeah.
And they did a concert, which was kind of a more public, was the first kind of big public outing of there was a lot of those bands, and Ultravox headlined, and you were first on, I remember.
Yeah.
And I think you sat on something to do with a stage set, and it nearly collapsed on top of, I remember that good. But I remember they had an endless sound check. Like headliner bands do, and everybody else got about 5 minutes each. But yeah, and so anyway, so we did Photographic, which actually I remember because I had the demos, or I had a live recording that I'd done on a cassette. I can't remember, and I couldn't decide at the time. It was all very rushed, and I couldn't decide which track we should do for the Some Bizarre album and which tracks we should do for the singles. I wanted to do a really great track for Some Bizarre, but I also didn't want to throw away a great track as a single. So, but there were so many amazing songs on there, so many amazing, we ended up doing Photographic, which I think turned out great, actually.
Yeah, and that was the first time that we met the ARC 26.
2600, yeah.
Yeah, so Daniel, and we'd never used a sequencer before because we were always playing live, and I was blown away, thinking, wow, because we all played out of time, and suddenly there was this piece of equipment that put this in sync, and it made it sound really good.
You sounded really good playing live as well, I have to say. But actually, funnily enough, so I don't want to get too nerdy here, but I think there's a video on YouTube, because I got like 3 or 4 people sent it to me the last couple of days, about the Depeche Mode Speak and Spell kick drum.
Oh my God.
How to get a kick drum using the ARC 2600 anyway.
Yeah. Well, no, I will get nerdy with that, right? Because we started recording the Depeche Mode album in the Blackwing Studios in South London, and you know, I mean, the ARC 2600 synthesizer is an amazing piece of equipment, but Daniel would spend freaking hours doing the kick drum, and we're all sitting there like that, and it was like, and it just didn't seem to change. Hour on hour, we never really understood that.
But you know, kick drum's important in electronic music.
I understand. I appreciate that now. Yes.
And there were no 808s or 909s at the time.
No, we had
or Lin drums. So we just wanted to make a drum sound that was better.
We started off with a DR55. Do you remember those?
Yeah, the Dr. Rhythm.
Dr. Rhythm.
Yeah. So that was it's just incredible looking back now, how fast things happened. You know, I think we did the Photographic at the end of 1980, and all of a sudden, I think that's the track that on that album people were really attracted to. I remember John Peel played it a couple of times, which at that point, for a band like Depeche or any of the bands that we worked with, to be on John Peel was like the goal. That was the ultimate, you know, because he was the great influencer, really, of music at the time.
Yeah.
And then things just went really fast.
It did. Yeah.
And then you decided to leave. Sorry about that.
As one does.
As one does.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, that's the last question.
I don't know if you want to expand on that. Not really. We'll just move on then. And I remember when you came to play me the demo of Only You.
There we go.
I was in our office at that time. It's our first office when we started working with Vince and the band. There was no office. And I was in the office. It was a weekend, and I had a little synth set up, and I was mucking about. And Vince came in, so I got this tune. I'm working with this girl Alison. Which said, "Can I play?" I said, "Sure."
Well, okay. This is the truth. So Daniel's office was in Seymour Place.
Correct.
It was like a shop front, really. So he was in there messing about with his ARC 2600.
No, System 100M.
Already,
Just to be,
already
electronically correct.
And I played in the demo, and he said, he just doesn't seem to be particularly interested. And weirdly, our publishers all marched in at the same time because they were having a meeting with you or something. And one was from Sweden, one was from Denmark, one was from Norway, and the English guy.
Rob Buckle.
Yeah, Rob Buckle. And they said, we really like this song. And they said, maybe Daniel, you should have a listen.
So listen again. I mean, I don't know what I think I was just surprised, really. I think that was it. I didn't really know what to think. It was very different from what Vince had done before. Obviously, it was Alison Moyet singing. Fantastic voice, an amazing song. I'm just trying to remember why I was a bit hesitant at the beginning. I can't really remember, but
But I did think at the time, I thought, well, okay, Daniel doesn't like it, so I'm just going to go back to doing what I did before, which was probably working in the Euro factory. And I mean, which was fine. I mean, I wasn't expecting anything. It was just, I did this demo, and it was like really rough. We did it on a 4-track on a Porter studio. Alison sang it, and it was meant as a demo, really. And then, but then, as I say, when these guys came in, and they said, "Oh, maybe Daniel, you could take some interest." And that was the beginning of Only You.
Yeah, and the beginning of Yazoo,
Yeah.
or Yaz to our American friends, which again became hugely successful really fast. I mean, Only You was the first single, was it?
Yeah, it was weird. It was one of those. It was back in the day when you could chart at like number 60 in the charts and actually go on. People ask me, but I tell them that everything was amazing. because you never expected anything. It was always like next week. When Depeche Mode started playing live, it was like, wow, we've got a gig next week as well. And then we met Daniel, and Daniel's going to release a single. It was wow, everything was like that all the time. And then this Only You single went up and up and up and up in the charts, and it was mind blowing.
Yeah, I mean, the thing was, obviously everything was very different in those days. But if you got in the top 75, Woolworths, remember Woolworths? Yeah. They were the biggest record shop in the UK. I mean, obviously they're a big shop, but they were the biggest record sellers in the UK. And they would order tens of thousands, even if you just got in the top 75. And so it just had to get over that little hump, and then if people bought it from Woolworths, then it would go up. And then you'd get top of the pops. Yeah. And then, it was a process. I remember even with New Life, we just kept, that started really low and this just crept up and up and up.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so that's, Only You. And then, of course, upstairs at Eric's. Well, you recorded with a producer with Eric Radcliffe.
Yes.
Who ran Blackwing Studios, which is, as you mentioned, was a studio we used all the time at that point.
Yeah, that's where you recorded the teen stuff, right?
Some of it, yeah. And I was very, at the time before even I met these guys, I was very anti-recording studio, because it was, to me, that was, they look at me like,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because it was too, anything that had anything to do with the music business, I really hated, because I wanted to be independent of the music business, and part of that was recording studios, because originally I was just had a little 4-track at home and did stuff there. But Blackwing was the first recording studio that I worked with, and because I was just coming in with black boxes, I spoke to Eric. He was a great musician. He was a scientist as well. He was actually at Imperial College with Queen. Yeah. And he nearly got into Queen, but the only reason he didn't is because his backing vocals weren't good enough. that's what he said anyway. And he was we were kind of on the cutting edge. I mean, none of us knew what we were doing. That's the first thing, I knew very slightly more than the band, but only very slightly. So we had a lot of technical things we needed to sort out. And he was so enthusiastic about sorting everything out and making it work for us. It was great, a really great experience, Yeah,
he was an amazing engineer. I mean, I was fortunate enough. He and I kind of built another second studio at Blackwing, and he was one of those guys, because I was full of questions. I mean, what does that do? What does that do? And he was always patient and kind to show me how these things worked, because he loved doing it himself, actually.
Yeah.
And I believe that he was the person that taught you how you can synchronize sequencers and drum machines together on tape.
Exactly. He was. We don't want to go too technical, but that was a major breakthrough in production.
Yeah.
For our way we worked, to be able to do that. But and he produced both Yazoo albums, didn't he?
Yes. Yeah.
The second album was a bit fraught, the making, slightly. And then you left.
And moving on.
And this is all a bit chronological, but And then there was the assembly.
Yeah. And that was with Eric, actually.
Yeah.
Because he and I then had a really good relationship, working relationship, and I was messing about in the studio at that point, really just.
I mean, how old were you when Yazoo finished? 23, 22, something like that?
Yeah.
Because when we first met, you were 18 or 19.
Yes.
Right? So you had an amazing amount of success. I mean, Yazoo was huge.
We were very, very lucky. Very
It was
lucky.
a great record. They were a great record. But it was huge. You had a ton of success at a very early age. Did you feel was that pressure on you? Did you feel the pressure of producing and keeping going with that level of success? And was that?
No. To be honest, no. I mean, I was just enjoying it. I think I was enjoying being in the studio.
Yeah.
That was enough. That was enough for me. And Daniel there was never pressure from Daniel. Not that he told me. you know, to make a record or to to write a hit or anything like that. You know, I mean, that wasn't what Mute was about anyway. So I just loved being in the studio and experimenting. As I said earlier, I mean, the whole, for me, process is the most joyous part of the music business for me.
Yeah, you love the studio.
Yeah.
I know that, yeah. And you learn very fast as well, I have to say.
Well, I noticed that when we started working together, you learned really, really fast.
Yeah. I was interested. I mean, I was really always curious about this stuff, you know. Especially when you found a machine that could actually play in time and better than you could actually play on the keyboards. Like revelation.
And Fergal Sharkey, Fergal is, you know, currently he's the clean water activist, isn't he?
Yeah. That was a weird one because what happened, I'd written this song and there was a rumour in one of the sort of teenage pop magazines that I was working with Fergal Sharkey, which was not true at all. And you contacted me and said, that sounds like quite a good idea actually. So we got in touch with Fergal and he flew over from Belfast. We were shit scared because he was in a punk band, you know, and we were like nerdy, like electronic guys and everything. And he came over. I think he did 3 takes of that song, sang it. You know, it was absolutely perfect and brilliant. And yeah, that was an amazing time actually.
Yeah. But the assembly was going to be what is now quite common, but then was a very innovative idea. I think the idea was to do like a collaborations album, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we thought, well, it would be quite interesting to write a song and then to get various people to do vocals for different songs. But we tried it for a while, and a few people came to the studio, and it just didn't seem to happen. And then I started working at Trident Studios in Soho with Flood. And
The legendary producer.
Legendary producer, yeah. And he said, well, look, you know, you need to get someone permanent. So that's when we did the auditions, and he came to the auditions, and he sounded amazing, hence Erasure.
And the first album, Flood produced the first album, with some great tracks on it. Excuse me. But it didn't connect with people at the time. And it's the first time that one of Vince's, because the Assembly record with Fergal was the top 5 hit as well. And it was the first project that didn't quite take off at the beginning.
No, but man, we had such fun recording it. I mean, we spent way too long doing it, and spent way too much doing it. But we were really proud. We thought it was a good product and everything, and it wasn't happening. No one played it on the radio. Dollar did a cover of one of the songs. Nothing wrong with that, mate. And that's when Andy and I decided that, okay, no one's going to hear our music via the radio. Let's start playing live. And then we really did play as many gigs as we possibly could.
I remember, and after all the success of Depeche and Yazoo, you basically did the back of the van. It was like a transit job, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was back to your roots. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was and but also, I don't know if you remember, Vince, but both me and you, we were actually questioning if Mute was the right label because we weren't making any connections. It was kind of a weird time really because and it wasn't till. But then you decided you did the work. You went out and played, and then we released Sometimes. And I remember that you were on tour while at the time that record was released, and you were playing to, I don't know, you played the Marquee, I remember.
Yes.
With Primal Scream.
Yeah.
And that kind of size venue. And then Sometimes got on the radio somehow. And during that tour, and I remember the audiences grew and grew and grew. And I remember the last gig you were due to play was at the Mean Fiddler, and in Harlesden. And there was queues around the block. It was amazing. There was no queues in the early gigs. It was just a few fans.
and it just grew very fast. And I remember we had to do a few mean fiddlers to accommodate all of the people, and that turned out to be huge as well.
Yeah, we were very lucky.
Yeah.
Very lucky.
We could go on for hours, maybe for the next album, do part 2 of this. I just wanted to open it up a little bit to the audience to see if there are any questions. Hands going up. The young gentleman here in the front.
Hello, Vince. I just wondered if you're a fan of bands playing one of their albums live in full concert, and if so, you see Rachel doing that, and so how do you think that would work?
Sorry, just for those, I don't know if you heard that. I'll just repeat the question. Would you be interested in playing one of your albums back to back, live?
From beginning to end, kind of thing.
Beginning to end, sorry, beginning to end, yeah.
Yeah, I would actually, yeah. And the album would be chorus. Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I like that idea. I mean, I would see a band, if Pink Floyd were going to play Dark Side of the Moon from back to back, then I would see it, absolutely, yeah. Or Kraftwerk, Computer World, back to back. Totally, yeah.
Original gear, Vince, will you hear me?
Original gear. Yes.
No, I mean, we did the Reconnected tour and it was fun and it was nice to get to know Alison. So we never really knew each other, to be honest, in our short time together. And that was great, but, we've moved in quite different directions. So I think it's, I like, it's always about the next thing. It's about looking forward, so.
Yes. Young lady in the front here.
I'm with Tilly, you have some cultural influence on our life. I was wondering, what are the biggest influences, especially in sort of direction? Anything about
I don't know,
I'll just repeat the question.
Yeah, no,
from the
yeah,
back.
of course, yeah.
The question was, what influenced all the different changes that you had during your career? With other music or? Yeah. So what were your biggest influences in that sense?
I like all. I mean, I like. This is a bit of a cliche, but I like all kinds of music apart from jazz. Reed and I, the guy that plays cello on the record, the current record, he and I had a radio show that we were doing in New York. And so it was a 2-hour show of electronic music, so we had to find 2 hours of music every 2 weeks, and that was a way of me actually finding new music. Now I hadn't been looking for new music for years. I was sort of stuck on Gary Newman for 20 years or something. But it was an opportunity, or it was a situation where I was actually forced to go into discovering new stuff via Spotify, whatever. But so I'm constantly influenced because I'm exposed to new music all of the time. Unfortunately, my son is a Swiftie, so and I like Taylor Swift up to a point, But yeah, so I've discovered, during that period I discovered a lot of interesting experimental ambient music, which I would never have dreamed of listening to like 20 years ago. But now I find it really interesting. I think also it's because I'm a bit older and I've got more patience to go through a track. I don't necessarily need a great big chorus or an anthem or anything, The emotions that you derive from listening to music like that are completely different. And in my case, I find it very therapeutic.
Can I ask a question about going back earlier to what you said about learning about how drum machines and synthesizers got connected? I think this is when we talk about Eric Radcliffe. how important was it for you to learn to use the UMI sequencer on a BBC Micro?
I'll just repeat the question.
Did you hear that, by the way?
I heard it. Just repeat it for the audience at the back. How important was it to learn how to use the BBC?
The UMI sequencer.
The UMI sequencer on the BBC computer, wasn't it?
The Yumi, yeah.
Yumi, yeah.
UMI, yes.
Was originally we went from using the ARP26, not the ARP26, sorry, the ARP16 step sequencer, and then I bought a thing called an MC4, which is a 4-channel monophonic sequencer, which you could program, and then MIDI got invented, and the Yumi was one of the very first computer-based MIDI sequencers, and that had 16 tracks, so it enabled us to actually to trigger synthesizers live in a live situation, and it didn't take me long to learn it really. I think I'm quite fast at picking stuff
Well, I
like
remember
that
how
up.
fast I mean, I could never figure out the MC4, and you got it in like an afternoon.
Yeah, well, the MC4s were all based on numbers, so it's all based on 12s. I used to dream and I used to sleep just thinking about multiples of 12.
Vince, also, when you did chorus, you came away from MIDI and back to MC4
Yeah.
analog. Yeah.
Yeah, so what happened was, the Yumi was an amazing piece of equipment, and still is, you know, but I got this thing, I'm thinking, you know, man, it's just not, the timing of it is not very, it's not as concise. I'm not a person to make music that you feel, particularly. I want it to be exactly in time, and the Yumi didn't do that for me. So then what I would do, I would record the music, program the music with the Yumi sequencer, which was fairly easy to do, transfer it back into an analog sequencer, which was the MC4, and then record it from there. And then we would use a scope to make sure that everything was exactly in time.
Thank you for answering those.
I think we've got time for one more. Oh, God, I can't even see it. Oh, somebody here down the front.
First of all, thank you very much for your visit. I'm very honored also to be here. I wanted to ask you if you could imagine doing a project with Martin Ball again, like UCMG, for example.
No, I would love to do. I mean, we had Martin and I really enjoyed it. I think, well, I enjoyed it. I don't really enjoy it.
He did, yeah, definitely.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun. And the best thing about it actually was I never knew Martin. I didn't know Martin. We had no relationship whatsoever. I mean, even when he was in, you know, when we were in the band together, he was Fletcher's friend, and we didn't. Yeah, so we didn't have much in common. They went to the other school, and so it was lovely to connect with him in that way. And I knew that he was interested in that kind of music, so I just emailed him out of the blue and I said, Mark, you know, mind you fancy doing this kind of minimal electro type instrumental record? And he was totally up for it. And then we were basically exchanging files over the period of the recording process. He would, you know, take out all my crappy ideas and replace them with better ones. And then we finally got to meet properly when we did some promotion in LA.
You didn't meet at all during the making of the record, right?
No, we didn't. No. And it was really fortunate for me because he was super busy. I mean, you know, they're always on tour or recording and stuff. So I just happened to catch him at the right time when he had some downtime. And it was just a lovely experience. Whether we do it again, it's not down to me. It's down to him.
Please ask him.
Thank you. So I did a record with Phil Harnell from Orbital, and that was one of those weird kind of, my keyboard tech knew him, and we happened to be in Brighton where he lives, and we got together and we were just exchanging ideas really. But he's also a super synthesizer geek, so immediately we connected. You know, and we did this album, and hopefully, I mean, you know, maybe we'll release it as a proper vinyl or something at some point in the future. But at the moment, it's available. It's still available as a download.
Okay, I'm told we can have one more question.
Vince, one more.
One more.
We met at Maker Park Radio in New York. Anyways.
I'm sure we did.
Anything happening with Very Records, your label? Any new artists or anything coming along there?
Well, unfortunately, no. Not at the moment, no.
Well, Vince, thank you very much. That was. Thank you for being so open and transparent.
Thanks for coming along. Apparently, I'm going to sign some stuff.
Yeah. So I don't know where that is over there somewhere, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, see you there in the queue.
Okay, so for everyone who wants to sign in, the